Again, you know, the best things in my life happened to me accidentally. I never intended to be a writer in my time. Or, you know, women didn't have that kind of ambition. You are lucky, you young people, you have a whole range of options. I could either become a teacher or a nurse because my older sisters were either teachers or nurses. But I didn't care for anything. I didn't care about work that would involve, for example, oh my God, you know, blood and so on. I was too squeamish for that. So a teacher. All I wanted to do was to be a teacher. So I became one. And very accidentally, I was sent for a course by the Ministry of Education, a teacher training course. We had to prepare some instructional materials. I wrote 6 short stories based on my observations as a child growing up in a small town, observing people, you know, whom I'm still observing today. The temple medium. I remember my mother taking me to a temple and I saw this temple medium going into a trance. It's quite a frightening sight, frothing at the mouth. And as a little child, I was absolutely fascinated. Later it came out as stories. I remember the little old woman at the marketplace, you know, poor little old woman who would scrounge in the vegetable dumps for little vegetables she would cut and clean them and then sell and earn a few cents a day. And I remember observing her and being highly impressed by this woman's tenacity. She refused to accept anything from people. And this is the kind of thing I've admired throughout life. The kind of pride. I still see them, huh? These little old women, they sell cardboard and so on. They refuse charity. And I say, wow, that's something that we young people ought to learn. Huh? Yes. So, and my relatives, you know, my funny grandfather who was an opium addict, my akong, great storyteller. I think I've inherited the gene from him. And then an uncle who was very hamsap, always eyeing women, you know, so we used to laugh and call him Uncle Hamsap, you know. And wonderful, I wrote about all these little stories, some of them sad, some of them humorous, some of them very moving. 6 short stories, submitted them as part of the coursework. The course lecturer, who was an Angmo, an Englishman, he loved them. He liked my stories. He called me up and he said, why don't you put them into a book, write more stories? Do you know, in those days, nobody had written a book of short stories. But since I love writing stories, I wrote 12 more stories. 18 stories which lay idling in a corner in my drawer until I met a colleague, Robert Yeo. You know, I do not know whether you know Robert Yeo. He's a playwright, right? And wonderful person in terms of his helpfulness towards writers. He found out that I had 18 short stories. I didn't know what to do with them. He took them over, sent them to a local publisher, or tried to get the local publisher to publish them. The local publisher wasn't interested because nobody had done them before. You know, whenever they publish anything, it's with an eye to the dollars and cents. Huh? So they didn't even think it would be a viable commercial venture. Sent my stories to Hong Kong to a writer to say, what do you think? And the Hong Kong writer wrote back to say, yes. And that was how Little Ironies came out. In 1978, that was well before you were born, I think, came out. And it came out to a warm, eager public reception, simply because nobody had done it before. You see, I had the luck of novelty, I call it. It was novel, nobody had done it before. So once the first book succeeds, the rest is easy. And that was how I was launched on the road to authorhood. No problem whatsoever. And then, of course, I published internationally. One of the lucky writers, I would say, who was helped by kind people like Robert Yeo and large doses of good luck along the way. Of course, in addition to that, my writing, my love of writing. I love writing.